Hey guys, today I want to cover a couple bases actually in talk about sleeping and a little bit of a hint as far as that I've come to know in the last couple of years especially, and maybe share a little story here about my trip to the Philippines back in 2010. First of all, let me preface this by saying it was a experience of a lifetime. I loved it and I can't wait for the whole family to go back, and hopefully soon after all this craziness goes on ends once and for all with the COVID and whatnot. But anyway, I just want to discuss a quick little tidbit of information on what I've learned to help me sleep. All throughout the years, I've had all kinds of different difficulties sleeping, and I did all kinds of things to try to remedy that in very poor ways. One way was alcohol, of course. And I've talked about that before, and we'll talk about that again as far as alcoholism and how I overcame that through diet and working on the body, mind, and spirit. But this one, I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on just the little idea of masking up, and we all have our views on masking, and I don't have a great deal of positive view on the type of masking they're doing today, because I've read the science many years ago. But aside from that, I learned a great lesson with all this, because my wife, in her work, she had these types of masks, which, if I had to wear a mask, I guess I'd prefer to wear this one. But let me backtrack a little bit. So in 2010, we went to the Philippines, and that's one place that I learned that you have to master your ability to sleep, at least for me. Now, I grew up on a highway in a small town, but on a major highway it was at the time when I was young. So semis went past, and I actually loved all that noise. But I learned quite a lesson when I went to the Philippines there in the provinces. So we we met in Manila, and we went on to Iloilo, and then to Barbaza from there, which is where her family is from. And again, I loved it. I learned so much, and it was just great. But when we got out of the hotel the first couple nights, and we finally got into the province, and we slept, which was great. I loved sleeping at her mom and dad's house, but there were noises I've never heard in my life, and I can narrow it down to three things, and it was at the time I was like, oh my God, am I going to be able to sleep here or what? But so it was chickens, of course, and I never knew that chickens could cluck all night long, and they do. And there are dogs, and I never knew dogs could bark all night long, and they do. And then the third one was probably I heard at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, what in the hell is that? Am I ever going to be? So of course I went there around the end of April, which was their election time. And you've never seen cars with speakers in your life. I don't care if you're on Daytona Beach or whatever it is with their big bass music. And my son, he's got speakers this big in his car. But I'm telling you, I'll wake up at 4:30 in the morning listening to ABBA, I think, cranking all the way. It was very interesting, I'll say that. But it is loud. So anyway, I learned, and thank goodness I had my earplugs, some of these earplugs with me, so that worked. And of course, with the light coming up, I covered my eyes with whatever I could find. But again, I loved it. The experience was great. I loved waking up with geckos on the wall and stuff like that, So no complaints, just lessons learned. And I can't wait to do it again. And I'd love to sleep in the same type of environment. I don't need a hotel with air conditioning. The good sweat's good. But anyway, where I want to go from there is, so in the last couple of years with all my affirmations and things that I've been doing just for spiritual health and for mental health, and just good rest and peace, which has been overwhelmingly beautiful and effective. But along with the masks and all that stuff that we had to wear to go into places around town, and of course my wife at her work, listening to those affirmations at night and different solfeggio music to try to help me sleep going through different difficulties in life, like we all have, we all need a little assistance in our rest. I've never slept better in my life in many years, just by getting rid of alcohol and caffeine. I haven't had anything with caffeine really other than dark chocolate in almost 20 years now. But there's other things that can keep you up, of course. So I've used different things like melatonin and valerian root and tryptophan, which are all great. Melatonin you should be careful of because you want to let the pineal gland do its natural thing. But this is key in that. So anyway, the mask I was watching, I started listening to my solfeggio music to help me put in some affirmations, I am healthy, I am strong, different stuff like that. So when you fall asleep and go into that theta state of consciousness, that's where the hypnotism works. And that's where it happens. We've talked about this before, but that's why it's so critical to teach your kids the right thing, not brainwash them, teach them the right things about life, before the age of 7, because they're all in that theta mode. They're in hypnotism mode, awake or sleep, so it doesn't matter. So that's why it's critical to keep them away from fears and guilt and shame and things that scare the heck out of them, because those are the things that imprint that you remember for the rest of your life, unless you do affirmations like I'm talking about and take that stuff out and overwhelm the subconscious mind with new beautiful thoughts. So anyway, I was doing those things, so I was using my little laptop, and I don't have whatever all the other things that a lot of people have, as far as earbuds and whatever else. I just don't. I'm not kind of an anti-tech guy, but I used my laptop on the side of my bed and listened to it, and it was great. I could do it, but I pulled my covers over my eyes because it was put off a fair amount of light. And I took this mask, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try because it's black. It's a black mask, so I put it over my eyes, and I never slept better in my life. Because I'm one that tends to, like a lot of us, we every couple hours we wake up and then we go back to sleep, which is great, but some of us don't. There's other things that we can discuss in the future about that. But we wake up and then we get a little bit of light in our eyes, and as we've discussed, and if you don't know, and I've been trying to help people with this because it's so critical to understand the pineal gland in the brain. It's a little gland that's about the size of a grain of rice. It's a shape of a cone, pine cone that is. And that's the thing that you hear in all kinds of different scripture and different, like I said before, Jacob talking about, I saw God face to face, and the place was called pineal, or in the other scripture, your whole body, if your eye be single, your whole body will be filled with light. That's the pineal gland. It's critical to know that, because not only is it discussed there in that scripture, but it also talks about, and you will overcome and you will be healed. Well, we all know probably over the last 2,000 years, a billion or so Christians have died in sickness and on pain and all kinds of things. Well, what did that mean? What did that scripture talk about? What did they really mean about the healing? Well, one of the things is, when you talk about the pineal, you talk about that your whole body will be filled with light, and you talk about fasting and prayer, not just prayer. You talk about fasting and prayer in clean diet, no gluttony and those things. That cleans out that pineal gland from the calcium deposits and things that are in there. Not calcium crystals, that's part of what makes up the pineal gland, its perfection. But when you're talking about having a clean diet, an alkalizing diet and stuff like that, that cleans that up. So that's of course, as most people know, when you're talking about serotonin during the day, melatonin at night, you have to have a healthy pineal gland for one, and then when you get pure darkness, and I'm not talking, you can have just a little bit of light. That's just from birth till the day we pass. Sleeping in pure darkness is key, and the reason it's key is because when you do go to pure darkness, your pineal gland will put off that beautiful melatonin. And as I've been sharing for at least 20 years, well, about 20 years, melatonin is a major healer. So that's why good rest is so critical to health. Not only does it help you sleep, because when it gets dark, the pineal gland puts off the melatonin, but also because melanin is known now. Just look it up in PubMed. Melanin is well known, not just now, it's been known for years, that it kills cancer, it kills all kinds of disease, whether it's virus or bacterial infections or different things like that. It's a humongous antioxidant. And it does so much more. And that's just one thing out of the pineal gland. That's why I've talked about the sacred secretion, and when you go into fasting and certain things like that, where you cleanse that, and the colostrum puts off the fluid. Those are things that are rejuvenating, and that's all biological fact. So that's the key. I just wanted to say, it worked out great. It just happened to fit right. Going to the mask, and I just go like that, and it's, like I said, it's nice and dark. When the room's relatively dark anyway, and put that thing on, and you know what? Most of my life, I never slept more than maybe 3 hours straight, whether I was drinking or not. Like I said, I haven't had a drop for 10 years or 9 years. But whether I was drinking or not, I would still wake up every couple hours. Now I can go along probably 5 or 6 hours and not wake up at all, and that is amazing sleep that I desperately need a lot of times. And hopefully, you guys use that because I'm sure plenty of you guys have the same issues. But anyway, I look forward. I'm going to bring one of these when I go to the Philippines next. I guarantee it. So anyway, thank you guys. And if you guys have any, I want to do some videos on geopolitics, not politics like people know it. Geopolitics is about demographics, it's about economy and stuff like that. That's one of my other passions outside of natural health. But I'd like to we'll talk about populations and what we can do, to try to remedy some of the problems that we are going to face. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And what we see today is pretty minor compared to what's coming in the next 20 years. And this isn't about fear mongering. This is about preparation and going through those things blessed in a very blessed way. Okay, that's it for now. I got another one coming. If you guys have any ideas on some things you might want me to touch on in natural health or geopolitics, whether it's a population and the economy of China or Philippines or United States or the EU and some basic things that are going on to help you prepare, let me know. I'd love to hear it. And thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.